when you watch these Dallas Cowboys play, we watch this offense. We all have questions about the offense. I was not. There's a reason why it's Krusty's Corner. I was not an analytics guy. I was not into numbers. I was not into. But there's things you can learn. There's things you could take these numbers that I get. I have this ability now with these next gen stats of working with the Cowboys, and it's part of their package. And they're like, "Hey, Brian, take a look at this kind of." And I'll tell you what, man, I have
information is good.
Information is really good, and it helps you along the way when it comes to, okay, well, why are you seeing this? Is it really, can you apply this to that and be able to kind of make it all make sense? And, I've been in some discussions with folks on Twitter or on the different platforms. How open are these Cowboy receivers really getting?
That's a huge question. Watching the game, and Dak is looking, and he's kind of running around, and he ends up taking a sack on a couple of different occasions where you're like, you had plenty of time to throw it. What are you looking into right now? Just nobody open?
Right. I always wonder that, because you can watch the All-22, which I totally encourage. If you're one of these guys or gals that really wants to, you don't have to be a former scout. You could watch this stuff. You could go back, run it back, look at it. You say, oh man, that looked like he missed that block. Oh wait, what did Dak see here? You're just trying to learn. You're trying to better yourself. But I'm taking these numbers now from this next gen stuff, and I've applied it to what the Cowboy receivers and the way that next gen breaks it down is fascinating. They talk about open. If a receiver's open, 3+ yards, that's considered of separation. That's considered open. Neutral to them is if it's 1 to 3 yards. Okay. So that would be a neutral situation. Tight window is 1 or less.
Got it.
That would be the tight window.
And under Kellen Moore, there was a lot of tight window throws that Dak had to force in because receivers were not creating separation.
Right. You go through and you look at each individual receivers, and I also added Jake Ferguson to this list. Sure. Just to kind of see where the offense,
Jerry wants him thrown to the tight end.
Wants him absolutely.
And that one play might have been the most separation a receiver got.
Yeah. So you're when you look at CeeDee Lamb, of open targets he's had 17 targets that have been considered open, 16 receptions for 166 yards, no touchdowns, no interceptions on those open targets. When it's neutral, he's right at that's 1 to 3. He's 16 targets, 11 receptions for 192 yards, 1 touchdown, no interceptions. So open, he's right around for the percentage of targets, right about 49%. For the neutrals, he's right about 46%. But 16 targets, 11 receptions. Tight window throws. Where do you think he's at on tight window throws? If you had to say, and it's what's sad is there's been, well, not sad, but good. There's only been 2.
Sure.
Do you think he's had? Tight window receptions. Where do you think he's at? He's only had 2 what they've considered tight window throws. Do you think he's got the 2, or he doesn't got the 2?
I think he's 1 of 2.
Yeah, I would guess maybe 1 of 2.
He's 0 of 2. He's 0 of 2. He hadn't caught a tight window ball yet this year. 2 opportunities, no catches there. But okay, they're finding a way to be open or even the neutral part.
What kind of to marry this with your film? What kind of routes are they different significantly from last year?
I think that's a whole nother study, because I was going back and I'm going to look at that. And my next Krusty's Corner, I do want to look at the routes.
Yeah.
Because they have it broken down that way. I just was kind of curious. Well, where are they all? Are they open? Are they not? I promise you, when I have Thursdays, because we do the breakdown of the Chargers Wednesday and Thursday. Friday, I'm going to go through the routes, is what they want to do. And I'll give you an idea on that one as well. When you look at Michael Gallup, 36% of his percentage of the targets. 8 targets considered open, 7 receptions, 73 yards, no touchdowns, no interceptions. Neutral routes, 36%, 8 targets, 6 receptions, 77 yards, no touchdowns, no interceptions. Tight windows, he's at 27%. He's at 6 targets, 2 receptions for 30 yards, 1 interception. We saw that the other day on the slant that he run. Now, the percentage of balls that these guys have catch, CeeDee Lamb on the open ones, just to give you an idea, CeeDee Lamb at 94% of the open targets he's going to catch. Neutral routes are 69%, and of course the tight window he hadn't had a reception. Gallup, on the other hand, open 88% receptions, neutral 75%, tight windows he's at 33%. So the number. It seems like to me, okay, the tight window throws have been the problems here.
How tight were the windows Sunday? Would these be tight, neutral, or open?
These would be the majority of them were tight in this game or in this past game.
We couldn't get 1.5 yards of separation.
There was 40 in this game. It was the lowest the Cowboys had in open route situations. It was at 46%.
Wow.
That was the lowest they've had in any of the 5 games that they've played this year.
But there was an open player on 46% of pass plays?
There was an open player on 46% of the routes that they ran. But it was the lowest that they've had all year. This is the one that kind of gets me is Brandin Cooks. Okay? Brandin Cooks is, again, open routes, 26%. 5 targets, 5 receptions. Okay? No touchdowns, no interception. He's 100% catching the football. Neutral routes, 53%, 10 targets, only 3 receptions. That's with separation of 1 to 3 yards right there. No touchdowns, 2 interceptions. Tight window throws. He's had 3 targets, 1 reception, no touchdowns, another interception. So Dak Prescott has thrown the ball to Brandin Cooks in neutral and also in tight windows, and it's resulted in 3 interceptions.
Wow,
for him,
that turned around.
Yeah, and so, but his targets and his receptions are really, really low to begin with. Now, I looked at Jake Ferguson. Is what I did. I looked at Jake Ferguson's numbers, and his open targets are he's got 11 targets, 10 receptions for 98 yards. His neutral, 11 targets for 8 receptions, 72 yards. Tight window throws, 6 targets, 2 receptions, only 5 yards.
Yeah, these are not the tight window routes that Dak excels in.
Right.
That's number 1. Number 2, the offensive coaches have to do a much better job of getting him at least neutral routes. Neutral routes good enough at 67%. We'll take that all day.
See, this is what I see because I go back and I think about us being at training camp, and I think about the times. And Derek Eagleton asked me this question today on the Cowboys break. He goes, if the team is playing heavy man coverage, what do you do to combat that? You get in bunch formations. Mm-hmm. You use motion.
Yep.
You know the touchdown that they scored with Turpin was a motion across bunch and then went vertical with the route.
It's their best offensive play of the day.
It's best offensive play of the day. So when you just line up wide and try and win routes one-on-one on the outside, you're probably going to get covered. And like I say, 46% of the routes that the Cowboys that had an open route the other day. And even Brian Schottenheimer said it as well. He's like, we didn't expect them to play that much man coverage.
When he said that it's a copycat league, we're probably going to see that
probably
a lot
going to see some man, but they have got to do a better job of the things that we saw in training camp when it came down to bunch formations, scatter, motion. This team's one of the lowest in the league when it comes to motion again.
Yeah.
We're down to that where it starts off at a nice clip. And then now you're down to about 45, 46% on motions.
And we've never seen them struggle with it. We've never seen problems arise as a result of all this motion we got going on.
Right.
There hasn't been like a downside to it that should make them turn away from it, from my memory.
It's just disappointing, though, that a guy like Cooks, you feel like that you need to, everybody's asking, well, you need to get CD going. No, the guy you need to get going is Cooks.
Yeah, no
But
question.
you just wonder, though, is the neutral throws and the tight window throws have been, but the tight window, they've all been a problem for all these guys.
Yeah.
The Cowboys have got to do a better job on those tight window throws. Got to make something. You got to make plays.
What if all curl routes is actually the answer with Dak? It was mind-numbing for years to see these still shots on Twitter of all the receivers staring at Dak like this.
Right, but it was also a big reason why he was the highest percentage of contested throws, right? Those type of numbers that you're talking about was because of all the curls.
Yeah, I mean, you're getting a very stagnant, unimaginative route concept and passing game in this offense as well. I would love to see him in a new age passing attack that is just the scheme is getting guys.
Yeah, that's what you want to see. Yeah,
Purdy's not having to throw into tight windows. It's like, yes, they're going to struggle in tight windows. That's the nature of tight windows. The point is trying to avoid tight windows. Now, obviously, in games, big game quarterbacks, you're going to have to make a couple of those, and that sets you apart. But for the most part, as a play caller, I'm trying to avoid. I'm not surprised that you have low completion percentages in tight windows. Of course you do. The point is to avoid the tight windows. You're not surprised that in 3rd and long you didn't get the first down. Yeah. You're trying to avoid being in 3rd and long. How are you helping your wide receivers get open? And you don't you got Michael Gallup who's broken. He ain't getting himself open. That's obvious.
Right.
How are you helping these guys get open?
And they're not as a play caller, but those neutral throws, that to me, I think if you look across the board at the quarterbacks, that's going to separate the better from the good from the great right there. And that's where Dak needs to improve.
Real quick, Dawson, I flicked it over. I know we got to get going here. Hitch routes, Dak is 22 of 27 on the hitch.
Thank you.
On the slant, 12 of 17. He is 5 of 8 on crossing routes, 1 of 7 on corner routes, 2 of 4 on in-cutting routes. Okay. Just I went through it real quick. I know I was talking about I'm going to do it, but I just
I think this is what they got to be studying this week.
Yeah.
Do we need to go back to last year's routes? Obviously, the real answer is what Chief has. But what's the most realistic conclusion that the Cowboys are going to reach? I think it's going to be even more stationary receivers.
Right.
I think the issue is multiple players in an area moving around. Dak needs it more linear. And I think that's why the OCs ultimately come back to less receivers on the run for Prescott, Chief. Yeah, I want to see it. I want to see it. But that kind of super motion, it's so many moving parts, and the ball has to be perfectly timed and placed.
But the one time that they did it, he threw probably his best ball of the night, and Turpin was wide open for a touchdown.
One moment isn't the player. I could throw the best ball of the night. The next 40 would probably be incomplete, and I'd be broken at the end of the night.
I think it's more so the stagnant stuff that's causing an issue than it is the motion. I'd like to see more of the motion stuff.
I agree. I totally agree. But how many coaches that are out there are implementing that successfully? You know, the guy that showed up in Denver last year was supposed to be a QB whisperer as well.
Yeah,
not good.
That failed. It's really because, like I say, you mentioned the crossing routes. Those things are only like he's getting 2.5 yards a shot on crossing routes. I mean, that's that's something when you talk about the stuff that on the move. But yeah, we'll carry that on.
Fantastic, Krusty's Corner. I think it's the most interesting Cowboys conversation going on right now.